But getting on to like Buffy and Angel, it hits because they are demons. Like they lose their humanity. Angel gets his soul back.
Yeah.
So in this perspective, you have the very demonic, almost vampires are a plague against humanity, and there is no redemption for them. And then you have
Yeah.
this vampire with a soul, an
Yeah.
angel, and you get the brooding vampire, right? So it's like,
Right. Joss kind of like put those two things together.
mm-hmm,
And I think, and also it's like, you take it back to Romania, right? Because Angel and Jealous was
mm-hmm,
there terrorizing the Roma people and was
mm-hmm.
cursed
Yeah.
so we're going back into like Vlad territory
Mm-hmm.
and culturally, kind of like in the sense that it's magic from there that gives him the soul. And then
Mm-hmm.
we move into Anne Rice's territory of having this brooding, very good looking, also like, where is the money coming from? Person, man guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we keep going.
Yeah. Because you
And
have
then we keep
Spike.
going because then you've got Spike, and
Mm-hmm.
then you've got the other vampires. But still, who sired who ran with who when they were sired
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah. Because you have that they bring Darla into the relationship. And even though
Yeah.
they immediately kill her off in like the first season, they bring her back
Yeah, no.
for a
I mean,
huge arc in Angel.
all of that stuff on Angel, where
Mm-hmm.
you find out just how deep it goes with Drusilla, Spike, Angel, and Darla is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, that 4-pack is insane.
Just like when who sired who, how long they ran together, the fact that like he was cursed and trying to pretend like it was fine when he was still like hanging out with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then like this constant, like they keep coming back to each other. Again,
Mm-hmm.
we're still playing with the motifs of like soulmates,
Yeah.
of being, being attached, being connected to these people no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal that Drew sired. Drusilla holds a very strong space in Spike's life up until
Mm-hmm.
always. Like, that's true because she made him, and he never forget. Like, he can never like not give her some kind of like reverence
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that.
It's
And
such a
and
sweet relationship too.
it's the same thing with like Darla and Angel and Angelus. Like, she's known him in all these forms, and he's known her in all these forms.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a connection there. I mean, that connection is so deep. They bring a child.
Yeah,
They
it's
bring a weird mystical. I mean, it's a mystical pregnancy that happens between the two of them. And she dies, and she's like, "This is the only thing that we did right." And it's like so huge because you understand they've known each other across many centuries and in many different forms and at many different points in their immortality. So for her to say that is like, and she leaves this kid to him, and that is his responsibility, and he takes that.
yeah.
Now we've taken away the whole like glow of is siring parenting, and Angel is in fact a parent,
Yes.
like for real. That's his son,
Yeah.
and that is also powerful as well, like knowing, if you even knew exactly who that. I mean, that's such volatile information that he changed reality so that people wouldn't even know that Connor was his son.
Yeah. Because
Like that.
he had to fix that. Like what was done to Connor, like that whole, like I didn't particularly love Connor as a character. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with the actor. I think his like I feel like Connor was one of those characters you add because you think this is going to be really cool and it's a really awesome story arc. But at the same time, I don't think the writers really quite knew how to crank that one out. But
Just
like,
the sire progeny dynamic.
mm-hmm.
Now it's like, this is volatile information. This is information that if you are in the know,
Yeah,
right? You understand. Even Drusilla being the way she is, like, how did she get there? Angel made that happen. You have to know that. You have to know that he made that. And then in many ways, like everything that Drusilla does is his fault.
Yeah.
And those are the stakes then once you get there. Even like when we get to season 7 of Buffy and her, having that conversation with that new vampire that she eventually kills and finds out that he was sired by Spike, and that's how she knows that like Spike is killing again and back to his old ways and blah blah blah. Like again, this is like powerful information, knowing who made you.
Yeah. Because then also like Darla was made by the master, and it goes a lot into her psychology of how
it
she
was killed
is.
by Buffy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and then like who Angel falls in love with, and so he like betrays his maker. And on so many levels in that moment, like he kills Darla, she kills the master. Like it's like a demise of a part of his identity when he did that.
Yeah. It's like really cutting off this, like I really, really want to cut off this side of my life.
Yeah.
For this. And it's almost, I feel like a lot of, it's almost like an allegory for addiction, right? Like if Angel was this person who is now getting sober, this is the old crowd he used to run with.
It is very much that.
And they keep coming back into his life, tempting him.
I'm not like this anymore. I don't do this.
Yeah, I don't do this. And having Darla, where is this toxic back and forth. She has what he needs, but it's toxic as well. And it's like, very few of us have ever been in a relationship where you're just feeding each other's dark side. And that's kind of how it is. Because Darla, like, even when they do her backstory, she's not necessarily good. It's not like she was pure and innocent and then was turned by the master and he twisted
No, she was
her.
dying of syphilis because she had to live. Because most women, I mean, in that time, either had to be prostitutes. No, like that was it. It was like either you were born into money or you were like there were very little options.
Yeah, I also kind of love that Darla is so a matter of fact about it and unapologetic. She has no apologies for who she was as a vampire or as a human, because she was manipulative in both. And even when they come to Connor, it is like, this is the one good thing that I have done. But it's really not like other relations. It's not like other storylines.
She also wasn't happy about being pregnant.
No, she was not happy about being pregnant. She was not happy about being human. Not her life. And I thought that was exceeding. Yeah. I thought that was exceedingly refreshing.
Yeah, I did like her a lot.
And now we get to the True Blood.
Yeah, they take it up a notch, don't they? I mean, they do away with even in Buffy, knowing about vampires and knowing what was really going on. Again, the whole like knowledge is power. It's really all about who knows and who doesn't, who accepts it and who doesn't. And Buffy's whole everything is supposed to be a secret.
Yeah.
And even at the end of that, season 3, when the whole class gives her this little special award, they know that she's something, but they don't really acknowledge, like, they never really say, like, we live in a town full of vampires and, like, what I mean? Like, they never really like to say, like, I think we're on the Hellmount. Like, no one else says that in the town. Whereas in True Blood, again, the person they do away with that again. They're like, okay, we're going to rip that out by the roots as well. So now vampires are real. And everybody knows it. Yeah. Like the end with that whole thing, it's not a secret. It's not about like who knows and who believes. It's what are we going to do about it? Yeah. Like, how are we going to coexist? Like, this is what this show is about. But they came out of the closet. They're real. The end. Now what? Yeah. And then still some of the same things apply. I don't think that I can't remember if they show up in mirrors in that one or if that even comes into. They do. The things that these vampires, it's silver. It's silver. Yeah. And silver is like weaponized in like really unique ways, from just simple chains to like you can make a bullet to you can inject it. It's just used in so many various ways that it's almost like real. It's like almost like it's really nasty the way people can like no, I got a silver whatever for you. And there's sunlight. Silver and sunlight But I don't think holy water or crosses really, I don't even remember that being
No, I know I don't remember holy water. I just remember really silver, and
Yeah.
because and they can have a really visceral reaction to it. From like the end of that first episode, Bill is taken down by almost like a simple silver chain to like at the end, like the beginning of season 2
It
when
burns
Eric,
them.
yeah, it burns them, and a prisoner has a silver whatever a cross. It just happens to be in the shape of a cross, and he like goes after Eric. He just hits his skin and it pisses him off, and he fights. But it's all sunlight and silver, so it's like
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
vulnerabilities.
Those are the vulnerabilities.
You can use UV light, and eventually they make some weird ass virus, but like I kind of hated that. But
Yeah.
I think True Blood really boils down to, because they now don't need to feed on humans. It's like it's very sociological, because it's like, how do you as a vampire, after centuries of feeding on humans and feeling like they are food, now integrate into society along
Yeah.
with them?
Yeah.
And that's like,
And vice versa. And so
mm-hmm.
there's no more need for familiars, because you've got fang bangers. Like you've got you've
Yeah.
got to deal with people who have a fetish for you. You've got to deal with macroaggressions and microaggressions, or
Mm-hmm.
valid I think you're evil and you scare me feeling. You deal with feelings of superiority from the vampires, to also like understanding that you're outnumbered, and if they do
Mm-hmm.
decide to come in when you're sleeping, vampires being
Oh yeah, they also have to
wanting
be
to feel
invited in.
superior, but then also have to contend with the fact that they do need to work with the humans. And
Yeah.
there's something kind of fun about like when you were in the closet, when people didn't believe in you, that meant you get to be kind of like lawless, and like now you've got to pay taxes, like now you've got to do these things, like
Yeah.
the bar that Eric owns, that's like a legitimate business. They run
Yeah.
a bar, and that show ends with them like running a bar. Like they lead in an industry. So, you've got vampire politicians that are just as like annoying as like a regular human politician.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but what I think is interesting about the Sire relationship there
Mm-hmm.
is that not only is that person like your parent and they need to take care of you, so much so that when you turn, they have to be buried with you.
Yeah.
Like they have to come be reborn with you.
Yeah.
That was a whole new level of like, oh, you got to get in there with them. It's like, that is, you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to wake up and you're supposed to be there and be like, okay, I'm your guide. I'm walking you through this step by step. So there's that. And then there's also this connection that you have where if you're in trouble, they can feel that. And also if they need you, they can call you.
Yeah.
And you can't say no. Now that was not happening in any of the other ones.
No.
Darla and Drusilla, like none of that was happening. And then the only one who was talking about like a metaphysical connection or anything was Darla and Jealous. And that, I think that also had to, I think, more to do with their love relationship than their vampire relationship. But like in True Blood, it's got nothing to do with love. It's like literally if Jessica is somewhere Bill can and is in trouble, Bill can feel it and he's got to go there.
Yeah.
And also Bill is like, you come here, Jessica. She can't like, if she stands there and doesn't do anything, she starts like bleeding from her eyeballs. Like, I was like, oh my, and that was new.
Yeah.
That was a new sort of raising the stakes of like, I am indebted to you. I owe you. You owe me. Like, we are connected.
Mm-hmm.
It goes deeper than family.
Yeah, and they can't even leave. Like, you have to formally say, as your maker, I release you.
Yeah.
Like you have to, it's so very ceremonial that it's a very, very precious relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like you think of all the relationships that it's almost very much like Interview with the Vampire, where who your Sire is and how they do as your Sire can also reflect in vampiric society, right? It's like
Yeah, there's the
it's
authority, and they're
mhm.
like keeping the vampire culture alive or something like that. Like there's
Yeah,
all this
yeah,
like
yeah,
ritual and kind of like pomp and circumstance that needs to happen.
yeah. But
You know,
your
like
maker has to formally like
yeah,
release
has to
you.
do this thing. Like when Bill has to make Jessica, like it's he doesn't even want to. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's like this is what we're telling you to do this. Like they answer to people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not this like space where vampires are sort of free already. Like they're
Yeah.
definitely kind of free, but there's people, there's older vampires, there's some kind of order, and there's
Yeah.
a civilization, there's a society, and they need to answer to that, and then also
Mm-hmm.
try to figure out a way to like manage and mitigate that with the
Mm-hmm.
laws and the rules of human society that they're trying to integrate into, right? So like you said, it's very sociological. Like how are we gonna this is a social experiment. How are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
How are we gonna like
Yeah.
live together?
So we have like two big families in that, two big bloodlines that like go the course of the show. You have so the first bloodline we can talk about is like Lorena, Bill, and then Jessica. Because I don't think Bill, yeah, Jessica is the first vampire Bill has ever made. And
Yeah.
then Lorena, I don't think she made, in the books, she made someone else. But for, she only has, for her eyes only, or is her William. And she was another one that was like made by some crazy ass vampire. I don't even remember
Yeah.
how she got away from him, but he literally twisted her into what she became. And she kind of tried to do that with Bill, but also felt like Bill was her redemption. But then at the same time, it's we'll talk about that relationship, toxic mom.
Yeah. And Bill questions his parenting the whole time.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
he wants to do so well by Jessica. Like she was someone created by the show, but he, I mean, she was created because he had, as punishment, because he had killed a vampire, and that's a law that's in common with Interview with a Vampire. You took a vampire's life, so you have to replace it. This is a gift. This is like, you know, they use phrases like the true death, you
Yeah.
know, like.
Yeah, I love that. I actually really love that phrase. As just
You
that
have
that
to meet the
language.
true death, you know.
Yeah, you will meet the true death. I also really love Eric when he is in the sunlight with that one vampire who was off his rocker. And that guy is like crying. He's like, no. And he's like,
Oh, Russell.
like, be brave as we face the true death.
Russell
like,
Edgerton.
oh my God. What a like Viking thing to say. He's just like, come, be brave as we try. Like, and they're like handcuffed together and the skin is silver and they're just burning. And I was like, dude, this is so extra. Yeah, the true death is great.
Yeah. And then you
feel
have
like
that.
in True Blood, they have a really keen sense of their mortality.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's because on that show, vampires die.
Yeah, that's true. They're not, and they are hunted. I was about to say they're not hunted, but it's a different story from where you have, you know, where it begins. Like Dracula, we are hunting Dracula to kill this scourge upon humanity. Here, it's like this very full society. I mean, they could have continued to have gotten away with no one knowing they existed. Instead, they come out and let everyone that they know that they do exist. And now that it's very, very interesting by showing that they do exist, they expose this vulnerability because they're vulnerable during the day. They still kind of need to feed. You have these rogue vampires running around, and then you have, you know, these humans who are not used to this type of thing now going after them. So I think by not only introducing this vampire society where if you break the rules, you can meet like the true death, you can also meet the true death on this other side by people who want to hunt you.
They just want to kill you.
Yeah. Or like in the other bloodline where you have Godric who is just tired of living. Like he's which is weird because he's 2,000 years old and he's like, I'm done. I can't even reconcile what I used to be with who I am now. It, you know, in society and then you have that second bloodline. So you have Godric, Eric, his sister Nora, and then Pam, and then Tara. And
And
Willow.
I
I
think
keep forgetting about fucking Willow because the show forgot about her too.
I forget about that as well. Yeah. And I think, and feelings aside of how they handled Tara's death, which
Hmm.
I'm still mad about.
Me too.
Uh, when she died, it is treated like the loss of a child.
Hmm.
Like Eric says, "I'm so sorry," and like Pam has to mourn
Hmm.
as her progeny was murdered. Like it's a moment.
Yeah. Her progeny.
She cries and
Yeah.
she's not even a person who cries that much, and
Hmm.
she cries. I also think it's interesting that like he has to release her for her to be able to start making her own. And then there was a conversation in there about that too.
Yeah.
Like it's about time that you started making your own family. So it is,
Hmm.
the language around it is very much like creating. This is the only way that they create family.
Yeah. And I feel like every releasing has been at that moment. I love that the show took a moment and stopped for you to see how heartbreaking it is for that vampire and that progeny, right? The sire and the
To like
progeny
let go of each other.
let
Yeah.
go of each other. And the tenderest is when Eric lets go of Pam for various reasons. It's just not safe for her to be around them, and they're also having a bit of they're having a bit of a tiff for what the circumstances that are going around them. And he doesn't hate her, but in order to make sure that she is safe, he
Mm-hmm.
has to he has to let her go. And it like
She
that.
argues with him. I remember that.
Yeah,
She
yeah, it's
argues
so
and she
sad.
cries. She was like, "Shut up! Don't even say this."
Yeah, and Eric cries at the end too. Like it's so passionate. He's like, "You will always be my child." Like I remember that line when he hugs her. He's like, "You will always be my child." And then like has this moment, like just any dad moment. He was like, "Remember the bloodline that you come from." He's like,
Mm.
"You got, I Godric made me, and I made you, and now now you have your own progeny."
Yeah.
And it's so like, ooh, like I keep forgetting all this craziness with Panthers and everything like that we have moments where this is happening. And yeah, and you see all different types of sires too, from
Yeah,
those
good
who
ones to
mm-hmm,
bad ones to,
mm-hmm,
there's like a variety of them. I think it's also interesting if we can just give a shout out to like Blade
mm-hmm,
and Underworld that
yes,
introduce, vampires with weapons that shoot guns and things. I feel like Silver plays a huge role in the Underworld movies
mm-hmm,
that then makes it easy for us to accept that Silver is poisonous to them.
mm-hmm,
In True Blood, like I do think that these things that were happening, also had like their cultural moments, and then these shows were able to sort of to build off of them because they added to this lexicon of sires. I mean, uh, in Blade, it was that she was bitten when she was pregnant, and
yeah,
that is, and so he is like not even full vampire; he's half vampire. So
mm-hmm,
you have somebody who can walk in the day, but then this idea of how you can actually become a vampire,
mm-hmm,
right? Like it starts to change and open up, and then you see that starting to be the case as we move forward, that vampires can be made in various ways. I mean, still you have they bite you, they drink your blood, you
mm-hmm,
drink their blood, you have to drink a certain amount of their blood,
mm-hmm,
then you die and are reborn. Like this is how you make a vampire. But
yeah,
then I feel like though I've seen a lot of things where they're starting to like mess with this idea,
yeah. And
right?
I remember you wanted to touch on some other like vampire sire relationships as.
Well, I think it's the thing. The reason I'm bringing up Blade and him being born half is that if you look, there's a show that came out on Netflix last year called Vampires, and it's from France, and
Mm-hmm,
it's just like 4 episodes. It's worth a watch. But here you have vampires that are born.
mm-hmm.
So vampires that can get with other vampires and make babies and have like different, it can, now it's like not necessarily an infection, it's hereditary
Yeah.
in that one. And also they're not rich. They're all held up in a big apartment in Paris together. But they're not these like, you know, you have like a differentiation of class even
Mm-hmm.
within those vampires. Um, and
Yeah,
that
that's
it doesn't necessarily present itself. So I think like not all her kids have it. So you've got the head vampire and then the other ones that are fully vampire, and then she's got two kids.
mm-hmm.
And one of them turns once like puberty hits, but the other one doesn't
Wow.
because their dad is human.
Mm-hmm.
So then now you've got like this thing that can happen now in this in making sires, and like who gets to be like, is it passed on to you, or are you bitten? Like there's more than one way. And I thought that was, it's a good show. I mean, I liked it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to
And it's
touch real
another,
quick on what you said, because that happens a little bit in like the Blade trilogy. So like you have Blade who was bitten, whose mom was bitten and then gave birth to him, so that's why he's a walker. You have Deacon who was bitten, he was turned, and then you have that whole vampire society who Deacon is really pissy about because like they won't allow him to move up the ladder because he was someone who was turned. And then Blade 2 is really about that because you have this, for lack of a better word, princess who needs to work with Blade because now they have something that is preying on vampires, right? And
yeah.
she's like, if you don't help me out, then what are they going to do when eventually they run out of vampires to eat? And then also, not only that, there are humans are getting in the crossfire. So like Blade 2 mostly touches on that vampire society of like, because they're born, like you can have the ones that are born, then you have the ones that are bitten, and then you have Blade who's like now this extra thing.
Yeah, there's like next step in that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily that you are made and there's this whole like ritual moment of like, I am making you.
Mm-hmm.
Like now you're getting into maybe something that is more present in Bram Stoker, of this sense of like bloodline and purity and
Yeah.
nationalism. Almost like we're the purebreds, and they'll actually use like purebred. Like you get into that kind of
Mm-hmm.
space, and like who's the hybrid and who isn't, and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
there's leaving some space for 30 Days of Night,
Yes.
because one, I love that movie, but two, that movie, when I saw it, I was like, this is such a departure from anything I've seen about vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Like that movie was like, we're just gonna do our own thing. You want to talk about like we're doing our own thing? Like they did that, and they did that successfully. And I think that's also interesting. Like those vampires are animals. Now we're
Yeah.
getting a little back to the whole like, this is Ghoul, this is the Scourge, they are evil. They
Mm-hmm.
have their own language. Like
Yeah.
one of them even speaks English.
Yeah.
Um,
It's that weird
you're
like Cleon like
yeah, I don't know. We don't know what's going on there. They don't need to be invited in.
Mm-mm.
There's none of that that's going on. It's just like if rabid a pack of wolves like got into your town and ravaged
Yeah.
it. Like it's more like that. It's more that you just need to stay out of their way. But there doesn't seem to be any weaknesses other than sunlight.
Yeah, and then that horrific premise, like when, like, I think I first saw the commercial because I didn't read the graphic novel, but like I was like, wait a minute, no one ever thought like, yeah, if you're a vampire, you're undead, the cold is not really going to bother you. Why wouldn't you hang out where it's night all the time during this period, and then you could just have a feeding frenzy? I think that was the most horrific part of that movie, and a lot of that movie is that that tension is held by the fact that the sun is not going to come up
Yeah,
for
this is the one
months.
weakness. It's not going to come up for 30 days. Like,
Yeah.
because that's how it works where we are.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was a really interesting space for vampires because they seem to have been born that way. It felt like they were a different species.
Hmm.
There was no like, we're going to make, we're making people or any, there's none of the romance, none of that. There's none of the sensuality or sexuality, like, no,
Hmm.
have to not get eaten. But I do remember that one person did get bitten and was left to die under a house and turned. So it seemed as though being a vampire was like catching a disease.
Yeah.
right? It was like a virus because
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
if you survived an attack, so it almost is like becoming a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's almost like going into that space.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you survive the bite, then you become this thing, and it was rapid. Like that guy had been left for dead, and then they went over there, and he was still recovering from his uh, injury as he like hid under the house. But then he started attacking people that were trying to help him, and they realized that he had turned. Like, and then they started to learn that like, oh, it's almost like a zombie bite now. Like, you know, it's like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like that period in the 2000s where everything was kind of almost based off of rabies. Like, I felt like 28 days later kind of tipped that off. And once we have fast zombies, now a bite could just turn you, you could get turned into a werewolf, you could be a
Yeah.
zombie, you could,
These things,
you
but
could be a
whatever you're gonna be
vampire.
is gonna be scary and fast. And
Yeah, it's gonna catch Tyra because she can't run that fast.
yeah, you know, like so I think, but in terms of just like this Sire progeny, I'm like, well, that kind of threw all of that out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just a part of a pack,
Yeah,
and there's an alpha,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't think.
And your weakness is sunlight, right? Because Josh Hartnett like gets bit and
Mm-hmm.
halfway turns
To fight that
to
alpha.
fight him to die, and that's another one to face the true death, if you will.
Yeah, and it's
Like
super
he,
sad. It's done in a way you're like, I spent this whole hour and a half terrified, and now I'm sad.
yeah. And so coming full circle, like though, but it kind of follows the Dracula
Hmm.
rules, right? He has to sacrifice himself, you know, or get
Yeah, someone's
into
got
this
someone. Look, at the end of
space.
the vampire story, someone's got to die.
Yeah, somebody's got to sacrifice himself.
So
But
last, yeah. Oh, sorry.
it's
Go
less.
ahead.
No, I'm just saying that like it's less of a thing in Angel and in True Blood that people
Mhm.
need to sacrifice
Yeah.
themselves. I mean, Angel just kind of like walks away into the mist.
Hmm.
And I don't know, Bill just wanted to die. That whole thing was weird.
Yeah, that whole thing is weird. It doesn't happen in the book. They remain friends or so. Like his arc, like quite honestly, like if you want to go back and forth with the book and the show, there are good parts to all of it, but it's all
Mm.
weird. Uh, and so in the book, like they remain friends, but his relationship with Suki has opened a new chapter in his life because now he has you know he has been able to integrate himself into society. And if he had never had this relationship with Suki, he may have fallen backwards. Whereas
Yeah.
this, he had like, the show, he had Hep B because that whole Lilith story arc and, shenanigans happened. But I do love that at the end of the show, one of my favorite relationships, Eric and Pam, they're back together and they have new blood. And are at the Stark Market opening. So talk about rich vampires. Those two do it right.
Yeah. I am also tickled pink at their success.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Like I
I'm
didn't
like, they
like
always
a
find a way
lot.
to get land on top. All right.
Yeah, I didn't like a lot from that like ending of True Blood, but I can tell you right now, Pam and Eric, and then like James and Lafayette, my two like okay True Blood. Like later on, other shows would piss me off far more. So I have like more. I guess you have hindsight being 2020. So last question,
Hmm.
because I've already said mine, which is Marius. So who would you want to be your vampire sire?
Oh, who would I want to make me into a vampire
Mm-hmm.
and be connected to them?
I'm gonna
Oh,
have to, yeah.
God, yeah, right. Are we going off of the idea that like this person has to like release me
For
and
what
they can call
I
on me and all
there are
that
no
stuff?
parameters on fandom if
'Cause I
you
don't know
pick
if I
Dragon.
want anybody to be able to do that to me. Like the True Blood version of Sire progeny, I actually would not want that at all.
Yeah,
Like
it's the only
you
reason I
don't
didn't
have to
pick.
use me.
Yeah, it's the only reason I didn't pick Pam. Like, I just don't want her to be
Yeah,
like
right. Like if
pissy and not release me.
oh God, for
So I would
real.
have to go with Marius where we see each other all the time. But like Marius had me hooked, line, and sinker when he had a Roman bath in his penthouse apartment. So like, because he's rich, he's well cultured,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm
I can hang out or not.
Huh. I think I'll have to go with Angel.
Okay.
And since funny is, yeah, I think I'll have to go with Angel. Um, I want a soul. I feel like he would figure that out for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's rich, so there's that.
Yeah.
I could stay in one of those rooms in that giant hotel of his. Yeah, for a minute.
Yeah.
But also, if I wanted to go off on my own, he's not gonna like
Be a
lose
dick
his
about
mind.
it. Yeah.
No, like he'll just be like, "All right, cool." I also think that if I, as a human being, said like, "I need for you to do this," like the circumstances of him doing that to me would be particular,
Mm-hmm.
would be to save me. And so
Yeah.
if I said like, "You need to find a way to curse me so that I can know I can still be myself and not have a demon take up a space in my body,"
Yeah.
that is somebody who would figure that out,
Yeah. That's
right? So
true.
I could ask, I could like set parameters around my turning
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think any of the other vampires would even bother to ask me.
No. Yeah. Me, I'm just going off of like fandom and like the masquerade of being a vampire. So that's why I chose Marius. Like it would be super dope. We would be rich. I'm that gothy and romantic and prestige. So it
Yeah,
would
no,
just be
I get
fun.
it. Like it sounds very adventurous. I'm really thinking of
Yeah.
it like me, myself, and like as I am now. Like if this were really happening, what kind of life would I want to live? And I'm like, well, I kind of want to keep doing what I am doing, and he helps people. So like maybe I could work with him for a time and then start up my own agency. Like I'm really thinking about it. Like what would I want to do?
No, but that would be super dope. Like I want that to be your storyline. Like you like that's how
I'll
it
be the
goes down.
other
And please write a
vampire with a soul, but I want to be able to have sex.
And please
So
write a story about that. Yeah, yeah. It's weird with the Anne Rice vampires because it's not like they know it's missing. It's only when they run into a human that wants to have the sexy time with them that they are like, oh yeah, this doesn't really go down for us, and they're okay with that. It's a weird, like they don't miss the sex, but they do.
no.
It's highly eroticized with the
Everything else they
fighting.
do is erotic. Like
Yeah, oh my, everything.
everything else they do. So I guess that's why they don't miss it.
Yeah,
But the
it's
vampires on Buffy and Angel, they get to like do it. So
yeah.
I kind of want to be in that space. And then if it's not going to be Angel, then I'd actually prefer to just go all out
Mm-hmm.
and do the 30 days night, like, and just be in the pack. And it's like I hunt in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm scary, and like I'm an animal, and that's
Yeah.
like I've totally crossed the line.
Or you could
You
do
know, like total, like absolute on the
yeah.
other side of on the other end of the spectrum. I don't even look the same. I don't even speak English anymore. Like or any of the languages that I speak. Like it's over. I'm speaking vampire. Like it's a wrap.
I was gonna say you could go halfway and do like some Lost Boys type deal. Like there's a weird mythology. Yeah. And then
I
you
never
have to
really got how that one worked either, though, because it was like then you've got the one head one, and if you kill the one head one, all the other ones die. So it was like a hive.
yeah, it was weird. It's like someone had read Queen of the Dam or something like that because of Akasha. Like if you killed Akasha, like all the other ones start like it's very hard to kill Akasha, by the way. But like all the since every other vampire was a progeny technically, they all could have like something was starting to happen with them. So I feel like that became the idea in the 80s where there was like one alpha vampire and if you killed them, like it's so neat to look back over vampire pop culture folklore to see what was happening at the time. And like in the 80s it was like you had the alpha and then you could kill all their progeny if you get like that.
Yeah, if you just get the one.
Yeah.
And then you've got, you know, the strain. I don't know if you ever watched any of that show.
I didn't because the poster creeped me out and I am always team pretty vampire.
Yeah, this is where we get into like ghouls, and then we get into being, well, we get into like it being viral.
Yeah. And I was like, no, I need a masquerade. I need to know, like, even Underworld, I totally dug. Like, they were hanging out like models in that gothic castle. Like,
Yeah,
I
with
want to
lots
do
of
that.
vinyl, lots of vinyl. I don't know if
Lots
I could
of
do
fun.
it. Lots
Yeah,
of black and vinyl. I was like, y'all
it's
need
fine.
too
Like,
much
I could do the
color.
corset thing, like corset and
Yeah,
like
I'm gonna
really
breathe.
like cashmere and stuff like that.
The outfit I couldn't really get into, and that's why I was like not Underworld and not Blade because he doesn't even like being a vampire.
No.
So I kind of want Angel because that's why I say Angel because there are things about being a vampire that he does like, even though he's probably going to be begrudging about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I know there's a role-playing game called Masquerade, but like that, I kind of miss like that whole thing. I guess I could go online and play Masquerade, but like it's all about vampiric society, and it kind
mm.
of digs into like my favorite, like my happy space about vampires, where it's like all gothic and there's hierarchies
Yes.
and
No, I mean, if you're gonna do it, like lean into it, right? It's
yeah,
like
and
go all
banquets
the
and
way.
waltzes, like
Oh yeah, and puffy skirts and things. Yeah,
yeah,
shiny jewelry,
yeah,
shiny.
shiny. Just don't make it silver. But
Yeah,
and with that, I
absolutely.
want to thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you for
having.
having me on. This was fun. I don't know, maybe next time we can talk about werewolves or so.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it. Like no one ever asks me these kinds of questions. And of course, these are conversations that I enjoy.
Yeah,
But you can't just like show up at a party and be like, so what
yeah.
have you noticed about the vampire Sire? Like, people are gonna think you're crazy. So
I would love to say that I don't do that, but I do that. Like everyone knows at work, I'm good for question of the day. If you could be on any starship, you get to pick three. Which one would you be on? And like that's how it is with me. So like I'm always maybe that's what I
absolutely.
should start doing instead of like
Firefly.
trying
I'm
to
gonna
yeah.
be on Firefly.
I feel like I would train my whole life. Yeah, I would train my whole life to be on the Enterprise, then get like fall into like a Firefly, the Milano, Guardians of the Galaxy situation, and then when Picard finally shows up, I would be like, with all due
Oh,
respect, sir,
you're just gonna be
I
a
think
Federation.
no, I would be like, with all due respect, sir, I think I found my place,
I
and plus
see.
now
Oh, it'd be that story. It'd
yeah,
be
it would
that
be that
story.
story,
Okay.
because it's just better where I could just be that Lancer or that B story, that second in command person who is always picking at the captain. Like I wouldn't
Mm.
do it that way.
Yeah, I'm absolutely doing Firefly. I totally want to be Callie. I want to be the mechanic on
hmm
Firefly, like all rogue, out in the black. That
hmm
you want to talk about like adventure, just be anything. It's like space adventure. Firefly.
Yeah,
If not, then
sweet.
let's like go hard on fighting for my life, and I'll be on Battlestar Galactica.
Oh,
Stuff.
sweet. I always, yeah, I like it. I finally admitted this like to someone. We were talking about Star Wars. I was like, you know what? I mean, the Force is really cool, but my number one thing I've always wanted to be is a pilot in whatever. Like pilot, like if like my
Mm.
dream role, like if they do a Rogue Squadron movie, like I want to be a pilot in Rogue Squadron. Like
Mm.
there's still time. Like I could be up in that ship. Like give me an X-wing. I want to
All
say
right.
thank you so
Yeah, it's like
much.
talking with someone seriously about this thing. Someone who's got like an actual opinion, like what starship. I mean,
Mhm.
so funny that you asked that, and I knew right away. I was like Firefly.
Yeah,
I didn't
welcome to
even think about
Tyra's
that.
world where she gives you permission to do
I didn't
that.
even know I felt that strongly about it.
But see, I love it. Well, see, this is what being an Imaginarium is about, is like getting people to admit what they didn't feel that strongly about. And it's all based on imagination. We love imagination here.
Yay! All right, well then let's do this again sometime
Thank
soon.
yes,
Happy
absolutely.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween.